Welcome to another episode of the Evolving Practice Podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Moss, and I'm here with my trusty friend.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sean Carey. We're so excited to be with you tonight.
Yeah, and we're excited for many reasons. Number one, this is our quarter century episode. So this is our 25th episode
Oh
that
yeah.
we've recorded, which is a milestone in itself. You know, they say in podcasting, the biggest thing is to be consistent over time. And we've been having an awesome time recording content. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And going into this episode, we were talking about, just some general things general themes that are going on in the world that happen every year. Is we just came off of Thanksgiving, we're rolling into the holidays, into the new year, and there's this motivation to make changes that occurs, but sometimes we don't actually face the reality of it. It's the winter and what's that mean. So this episode is focused on being healthy and well, and bringing light to your health and your life during the darkest time of year. So we're going to explore those themes with you. We also had a really another milestone that Sean can fill you in on. Last episode, we had a unique experience that we found out afterwards.
Yeah, we had the first episode banned by YouTube. I don't want to say what it was that got us banned because I don't want this one to also be banned. But
Yeah.
that was the first time out of 24 episodes, and it was interesting because what was not allowed was something that was very minor and said in passing. So it's
So
interesting the
minor.
things that you're not supposed to say.
Gosh, it was crazy.
Yeah, and if you go back and listen to the previous episode, I don't think that you'll hear anything that's just so crazy out of left field that it actually warrants
No,
being negated.
I think it would be hard to find. And I don't know. I consume some YouTube content from time to time, and I just never really sat and have been like, is this allowed or not? It was so minor, right? But
Yeah.
they took it down like, I mean, I think like an hour after it was posted. It wasn't even a long time. So you
Huh.
can listen to it on iTunes or Spotify and any of those things. But it's just hilarious that we don't talk a lot about controversial stuff, and it wasn't even said in controversy. So I don't think we're gonna say anything to get ourselves banned again. But it was just very fascinating that we got some of that attention going on in the podcast. So we'll have some fun with it. It actually, I think, was our most downloaded episode
Yeah.
uh, in the first week. And that was with Jason Radke. If you haven't listened to that, he's also a chiropractor. He does some energetic healing work out of California. And it was a really fun conversation, maybe our longest interview that we've done
Yeah.
um, up to this point. And it is fun to sprinkle those interviews in with you guys because we know some awesome people. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we have another exciting interview coming up. We're recording the interview in a couple days
Yep.
with Dr. Erin Bannock, who's an amazing veterinarian. So we haven't had a veterinarian yet on this show.
No.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited for her interview.
She's got such a unique practice and way, and it kind of shows. We bring a lot of people that have multiple, I don't want to call it disciplines, but interests and
Yeah.
ways of viewing the world. I think they have a larger um, kind of foundation to
Yeah.
view healing, which is very helpful. A little bit of healing typically opens up people to a lot more healing. One of the concepts we've talked about before is the idea of health is such a cornerstone foundational thing. And we see it all the time when people start doing one thing differently, they look for other ways to help themselves. And I think that's kind of what this podcast or this episode has the potential to do, is to give a current perspective of what to do when the winter and the change of season, and then just some things to keep in mind for this time. Because what happens this season, man, everyone gets sick. I haven't been sick, but you might hear like a rasp in my voice. My wife she actually missed Thanksgiving. We went to my mom's place with the family and met my sister, but she didn't come along because she didn't want to get everybody else sick. So we're always up against a lot around the holiday seasons, and there's so many reasons why. Which let's get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually feel so good right now. I had, for Thanksgiving, I took, like, 4 days completely off, no business stuff, and I feel, like I didn't drink caffeine either. I've been drinking too much caffeine. I did do decaf
Mm,
coffee, but I feel great. Like, I
that's
after
awesome.
about 3 days of doing nothing, I was starting to get pretty antsy, and I'm like, "Okay,
That's
this is maybe my limit." But, yeah, I was so excited to go back into the office today.
that's great. That's a great place to be. I definitely was ready, and I gave myself that downtime, and I know for myself, like this year, I'm shutting down from the 23rd through the 2nd. So I work
Yeah.
Monday the 23rd, and then we have 3 weeks, or I'm sorry, like 10 days off. And in previous years, the way it's fallen, I've kind of worked a little one week, a little the next week. But this year I'm like, I need a full big break because I spent a lot of time last year just fighting not getting sick all winter. And it was really difficult. It was from like November on, my immune system was kind of run down, and then I just played this game of like not getting sick. So I've learned a lot from that year, and I don't want to repeat it. And
Yeah.
the first and foremost thing for me was to limit my commitments is starting in this month of December. Like December can be such a celebratory, fun time, but last year it's like I went to a couple like football games. I went to Pittsburgh Steelers football games in like the cold. I was traveling. You have holiday parties. We're doing an open house at the office. I'm trying to see healing clients, run classes, and it was
Yeah,
like too
too
much.
much.
So this year, I've very much limited what I'm doing in December, and I'm saying no to more things than saying yes. So I think that's probably one of my big things I'm starting this with. Yep.
I love that because there is, like, a natural rhythm to the year.
Hmm.
In Wicca shamanism, we would refer to this as the wheel of the year.
Hmm.
So and there are different holy days that relate to like, there's the winter solstice or what's called Yule, the longest night, and it's all related to the cycles of the year.
Mm.
And wintertime is that time of more darkness,
Hmm.
meaning that it's more like, internal time. And for
Hmm.
most people, their natural body rhythms, it's like you need a lot more rest. Like, I personally need much more rest during December than I do during, June.
Yeah.
And, like, the December, like, honestly, like, if, I'm in bed probably 9 o'clock most nights if I can.
Me too. Oh my
And
god. We do this at night, and I
yeah.
always we usually record, and I put my daughter down for bed before we usually jump on, and tonight I was like, "Oh my god, I want to just be asleep and fall
Yeah,
asleep." So I feel
yeah.
that exact same pull is to like sleep more, go to bed earlier for sure.
And if we have people listening from around the world, so depending on where you're listening from, like we're in New England here. In
Mhm.
Boston right now, I think the sunset's about 4:06 PM today.
It's
I mean, it
crazy.
is like it's cold and it's cold. It's cold and it's dark. And the natural cycle of it is like your body just kind of wants to hibernate. Like
Yeah.
you literally need more sleep.
Yeah.
And if we look outside, that's what nature's doing. Like
Mhm.
every nature is hibernating. The trees, everything kind of the trees go within. They let go of their
Mhm.
leaves. They pull the resources back in.
Mhm.
And very much when we talk about energetic cycles, that is something that it's the natural tendency for the year.
Mm.
It is kind of a bit, we have all its major holidays happen this time of year,
Yeah.
so it can be a very festive time, but it's so easy to overdo it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that too, like, there's tons of sugar, sugar and candy, and people our vitamin D levels in the north are super suppressed because we're
Mhm.
just not getting those UV rays. You need the full spectrum UV rays to make vitamin D, and we just don't have enough exposed skin. And also too with our latitude, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Even if we were outside naked, we wouldn't get, like, many UV rays at all.
I'm trying. No, definitely not. Yeah, and that's one thing I like, even a supplementation regimen for the fact of the winter and the
Yeah,
I kind of neglected that a couple years. It's like when COVID hit, everybody was like really on the like stay charged on the immune system, and I was too. And then I would say like the last couple years, I just like was white knuckling it through the through the season, and
yeah,
not doing the things and it's been a different type of viral world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's definitely um, more that we're up against, regardless of what type of viruses. There's like a new biome, if you will, and it is a little bit more challenging. And I know I have a 5-year-old daughter, and man, she went to school last year, and it was like, people tell you they're going to go to school and it's going to be hard, and you're like, I never get sick. I'm a chiropractor. I haven't missed a day of work for however many years. And oh my gosh, it's like, last year was like so. I tell people like, wow, you're really like struggling all winter. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, did your daughter go to school? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. I remember that. So I'm sure there's something to that. It does make it
Yeah.
a little bit more challenging as their little systems experience the world and bring it home. But everyone's been doing better this year because we've been proactive about it. But yeah, the big thing is that sleep factor is I need 100% way more sleep. And
Yeah.
it's like dark for 5 hours before you go to bed. Like I think our sun
Mm.
time is like 4:45. So I think what happens is people try to live the same way. And I think that's why we're having this conversation is like we try to live the way we want to live in the height of June and July and when activity
Yeah.
is high and vitamin D is high and you're outside more and breathing more fresh air. And there's a different type of ease of energy that occurs where in the winter it's like, well, you just got to give yourself a break a little bit. And that
Yeah.
never made sense to me. Like when we get to the new year and everyone's like planning goals and we're like, let's go hit it hard. And you know how this is. If you're trying to build something in the
Yeah.
Northeast in January and then you get smashed with a bunch of snowstorms, you're not building anything. You're like surviving. So
Yeah.
it's more of that for me over the years has become more of an internal time um, during the winter. And there's many things I enjoy now about journaling, reflecting, planning, and going inward as opposed
Yeah.
to, trying to produce in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't really start understanding this until I started studying shamanism, and it's such the wheel of the year, these cycles within the year.
Hmm.
It's just such a core part of the shamanic teaching. So, like, you really have to start paying attention to what the moon is doing and what's happening in the
Yeah.
overall seasons, and then you learn how to like harmonize these gifts that are happening all around you.
Mm.
So basically, winter is the perfect time. It's the longest night that we're approaching with Yule and
Mm.
solstice. It's also the best time to let things go, and it's
Mm.
also one of the best times to plant that seed of like, okay, like what happens after the longest night? We know it's spring. We know the next step is
Mhm.
spring.
Mhm.
After this winter as we go through the cycle. But like, what do you want that to look like? So there is that like new beginnings that align with the new year,
Yeah.
but then also like taking before you just jump into the new beginnings, take that time to go in, let go of what doesn't serve, just like nature and the
Mm.
trees do, and then get clarity about what it is that you actually do want to bring in, so that you plant the right seeds. Because
Mhm.
I think a way energetically that people screw up a lot is when they overextend this time of year, but then they
Mhm.
don't get clarity on what they actually do want to create. So
Yeah.
it's like you may be planting seeds, but is it the right seed?
Mhm.
And then it's like because if you don't plant the right seed, you're not gonna get the right plant for the harvest that you want. You can't just skip that step.
Yeah. No, that's good. I know that was missing in my progression in life for many years because you kind of I can get into the flow of what people are doing and the energy and but yeah, there's different needs that I noticed that I have had different even ways of working out. Like my the warmth factor is huge. There's we've talked about warmth on the show before. My the doctor that we work with is obsessed with warmth. So that's become such a bigger deal for me during the winter where people act like, oh, cold doesn't create, um, illness, but it's like, yeah, well, you kind of are in fight or flight if you're not warm, if you're not getting
Yeah.
warm or staying warm. So your body starts to get into that like fight or fight mechanism, and then it's not as thriving or healthy. So, even from the workouts that I do and everything, I try to like maintain that warmth. And it's been so much better. This year, I've like really honed in on that and keeping my feet warm and my core warm and doing sauna in the winter. Like I don't want to do sauna in the summer very often. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
this- I'm not good with those extremes, but that all of that just helps keep warm so we can, you know, deal with the extreme cold because we don't have the luxury of, I guess, living in a warm climate in the winter. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so one thing that I think is really helpful for people is like vitamin D is probably the simple, most obvious thing to start supplementing with.
Yeah.
And sleep, like get more sleep. If you have access to a sauna or warmth or a fire, like those
Hmm.
elements are really helpful.
Hmm.
Um, because it is easy to get like kind of depleted in
Yeah.
warmth this time of year.
Yeah.
My favorite supplement though is elderberry this time of year. Do you ever do
Mm.
elderberry?
Yeah. We've had friends that make elderberry syrup, and but yeah, I usually do the elderberry gummies in
Yeah,
the winter. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Elderberry is super effective against the flu. And actually, in the Celtic tradition, in their astrology, they have they have 13 like most this is a little bit off track, but not so much.
Let's do it.
Yeah. The year basically has 13 different moon cycles. So a lot of different astrology systems they actually use these cycles of 13. We're a little bit abnormal in that the calendar that we use is basically 12 months because it just doesn't quite jive with how the year is actually working out in terms of the
That's what
moon.
makes us abnormal. We figured it
Yeah.
out.
But one little thing.
Yeah.
But it is like it is just a bit of an abnormal way. And the Celtic tradition, they had this astrological system that was named after the trees.
Mm.
So for me, I was looking it up one day. I'd
Interesting.
heard about this, and I looked up. I was like, "Oh, I wonder how I am in Celtic astrology." And I look up, and I'm the elder tree, and I start
Huh.
reading through it. Uh, so there's like the elder and the oak, and then there's like I think the alder, and there's these different ones. But for me, I'm the elder tree. And one of the things that it said in there that was interesting to me is that the Celts believed that the elderberry that it drove off evil spirits.
Mm.
Like, oh, that's really interesting. Now hundreds of years or thousands of years maybe later, we know that it's very good at driving away the flu. It
Mm.
has an incredibly high effectiveness rate against the flu, like maybe like 95%
Mm.
effectiveness against various
Mm.
strains of the flu. And for me, the flu is like the thing. Like I'd rather die than have the flu. I just,
The
I think
man,
it's
the man,
the
the
worst.
man flu. The man flu is the
Yeah,
real
but yeah,
flu.
it's yeah, especially
100%.
if you're a man, it's way more painful
Hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, it's like a cold for a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do not like the flu. So
Mm.
I take elderberry syrup, and it's so
Mm.
effective at preventing the flu. But it's interesting to me how in ancient traditions they thought that it drove away evil spirits. Because when we talk about like bacteria and viruses, like if you go back 1,000 years, they had no idea what these were. They
Mm.
just kind of broke it down to concepts of this thing is bad, which
Mhm.
energetically it is bad, but it's also bacteria and virus and
Yeah.
those things.
What's another herb that my doctor really recommended in form of tea and form of oil, using on like topically on the chest, is thyme. Thyme was a huge
Interesting.
one through all these different it's so antiviral. So recommended. There was a whole like thyme tea that we made with peppermint. I think I can even like get the recipe, but it's mainly thyme, part peppermint, part licorice, sage was in it, something else, and it was really good for respiratory health, particularly. And then also like thyme oil on the chest and back. If you're having like chest cold or anything like that, it was super effective. And thyme was used, I think, in a very similar manner back in the day. That it was like very antiviral, but also like had connections to um, being the way you were describing the world warding off like evil spirits too. I think it had that component to it. So it's a really effective herb for the winter. And like I recommended a lot of my clients over the past couple of years kind of get that for respiratory health, and I've found it to be super beneficial. I almost hate drinking it now because I've used it so much
Oh,
over
interesting.
the over like 2020 through 2022. It's almost hard for me to consume, but I will do it when I'm under. But it's a really good remedy for the winter for sure.
Do you get your own, or do you order it?
Yeah, what's the company I use? They're in like big silver bags. Um, yeah, no, I make the mix of the tea. So I ordered all the teas and then
Yeah.
put them together into one. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool. I've been trying to find something, like traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, like a good, like, drinking tea, because
Okay.
I was a bit addicted to, like, seltzers, and I want
Yeah.
to just like drink something other than seltzer because it just isn't that great for my body.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
get sore throats if I drink it too much, and I just know my body doesn't love it. So I've been trying to replace it with something better, but I haven't been able to get the right concoction.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. And I want tea at this time of year. Like I don't want to
Yeah,
drink tea a lot of times in the summer and that sort of thing. It's funny because like that's another, we even say in chiropractic is like true essence of chiropractic, we focus on this idea that you have this innate intelligence, and it's like this voice within that knows what's best, right? Kind of the
yeah,
simplest version of that, your highest self, if you will. And there's always, if you listen, there's these rhythms that work
yeah,
for individuals, for you, um, during certain times of the year, and I feel like each year I get a little bit better at that, where I know what I'm craving and what I want, and just fine tuning that every year helps me more. And this year I feel like I'm like more peaceful going
yeah.
into the winter because I'm not fighting um what's right for me at this point in time in the season. So I want to keep that up.
That's so powerful. It's kind of like when we think about aging too, like one of the nice things about aging is that you do tend to like get to know yourself better,
Yeah.
hopefully, and the
Yeah.
things that work for you. So
Hmm.
it's like you're like, okay, like this is what I need, and like you were talking about taking that time off and how at Christmas time and how big of a difference it made for you. And I noticed that for me too. Like if we take Christmas week off now, it's like built into the schedule, and it's just for me, it's just downtime. Like I don't do business stuff. I don't schedule energy clients or light work
Yeah.
clients. I don't do or chiropractic stuff. Um, and it's just like there's a recharge for me where the vast majority
Yeah.
of the time during the year, like we really don't get much time to recharge. And if we don't
Mhm.
have it, we just get too strung out or burnt out.
Yeah, and even as a kid, like I was really delicate around Christmas. I remember getting sick a lot around Christmas. And there just is a fine
Yeah.
balance for me, like between probably the sugar and the stress and being sensitive with the
Yeah.
changes of the rhythm. And I've always been on a razor's edge during that time of year. So I think I just have to be more careful. And I said to Lauren back in August, I was like, well, I'm going to really keep my schedule very clear
Yeah.
during that month. Now I say that, and I'm teaching a class in 2 weekends, but I don't have many people. It's a very small class, so
Yeah.
it just I'm keeping everything, I guess you could say, kind of small and well paced this
Yeah.
month, um, as opposed to other times of the year where it's like turn on the gas. Where I do feel like from a goal setting perspective, this is a great time of year, like you said. Like, what do I need to let go of? What's working well? What should I do more of? But then just kind of starting to put that in place in January and February, because it doesn't really start to take root until the spring comes, where there's this
Oh,
life and energy and growth. And that's really helped me,
yeah.
abiding to that, not trying to like hit the ground running January
Yeah.
1st, because I think that leads to a lot of like depression and people like kind of getting disappointed or taking their foot off and
Yeah.
not continuing with the things that they wanted to. And I think part of it is because one, people aren't disciplined, but two, I think the time of year, people's expectations of the rhythm of the world are very much not in harmony. You
Yeah.
know?
Totally, and, with, like, what you had mentioned too before in New England, like, you can have a big snowstorm that comes and, like, ruins all these plans.
Yeah,
Before in business, we've tried to do, like, different big events and things like
yeah,
that over the winter, and it's just, like, it can be a nightmare because do all this planning or maybe advertising or whatever it is that you're doing,
hmm,
and then it's like a snowstorm comes and it's all just
yeah,
gone.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Um, but yeah, it is. The other thing is, like we said, going internal last year. I remember I kicked off the year, and I think I like not had a 90-day streak of like meditating 30 minutes every single day. And I personally enjoy meditating more this time of year. I like doing
yeah,
it in the dark, in the quiet of the
yeah,
night, and kind of the early evening, even into late evening. Late for me isn't very late, but I find myself I want to do that practice a lot more. I don't want to move as often in vigorous ways. Like I want to do that internal time, and I notice cycles of the year when that's
Yeah.
easier for me, more beneficial for myself. I try to have that practice year round, but to the extent of it, I definitely do more in the winter because I love the reflection of, and also it makes me excited about what's to come,
Yeah.
what's to come for the growth of the next year. So that's something I personally am going to spend a lot of time on coming up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love this time of year. For me, it's my birthday too. Like my birthday's in 2 weeks.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm turning
Big
40.
one. Big
Yeah.
one.
So the big 40. And this time of year is like so magical for me because it's kind of like the two biggest holidays. Like when you're a kid, it's like your
Yeah.
birthday and Christmas. And for me, it's like
Yeah.
kind of at the same time. And
That's
there's
cool.
snow, which is really exciting when you're a kid. So
Yeah,
I
that's true.
yeah, I always get excited about this time of year, but it also is just this time of reflection. It's like, okay, there's a new year, and then it's like that internal goal setting, or like, are you going to be the same person this next year that you were this past year?
Yeah.
What do you want to change? So there's always this like built in of like, okay, planning and then reflection, and planning and reflection. But I think that where we as a culture get it messed up the most is we don't really do the reflection piece so well.
So good. Yeah. We don't do the reflection. And I think you just nailed it early in the episode of the letting go part. Like,
Yeah,
really taking inventory of not like this willing of what I'm going to do next year. It's like, well, what's really important to me? What needs more of my time and attention and what needs less of it? And that changes every year with family and what my daughter is and what I can give
yeah,
and where I can do it. And there's certain months and times of the year like I love that. I kind of enjoy that. I feel like every year I'm enjoying um the puzzle pieces of life that occur
yeah,
in the cycles of living in the environment and having your own environment and the challenges and the ups and downs that it brings. So I always get a little bit excited this year because it does feel like you're going through this completion of the year. Like you said, it's your birthday, it's Christmas. There's like a lot of celebration, and it also there's this essence of joy that I feel like
yeah,
allows us to it's always allowed me to be like, what really does bring me joy? Because
yeah,
Christmas is such a joyful time. I
yeah,
mean, I think that's why we love it. That's why we love Santa Claus. We just the essence. People are generous this time of year. We do this
yeah,
angel tree every year, and it's just wild how generous people are. They give money, they give time, they give gifts, and they they're not worried about cost or price. They're like, how can I outdo what's already being done? And that's such a neat spirit to see. And I like to hold that and be like, well, where have I been having the most joy in my life with this past year? Where has it been hard? Where have I fallen off um in my own self and goals, and then where am I having the most joy? Because each year I feel like you're turning 40, like I want to live in more of that as
yeah.
opposed to the BS that kind of brings us down.
Yeah, absolutely. And like if we think of like Santa Claus, who is like the master of joy through the
Yeah.
giving of gifts and that making children smile too. There's like that built-in peace with kids and like the magic of this time of year.
Oh my god, my daughter, we have an every year advent calendar. And like she yesterday was the first, right? So on the 30th, she was just like dying. She was like, I just want to open it so bad. And then, you know, like you don't want to say no to your kids, right? But
Yeah,
we're not like Lauren's so good at this. We have this story about there's like a made up family called the Weinsteins. And like Ava will ask us to tell her stories about the Weinsteins. And there's usually like some drama that they get into. Like, tell me a Weinstein vacation story, and their car breaks down and they get
yeah,
stuck somewhere. But there's always a resolution. So she's like, Mommy, is there a Weinstein story about an advent calendar? So instead of like telling her no, Lauren tells her this whole story about like a child who opens up all of their advent calendar and how this goes wrong and how they don't get to experience the joy of the season. And then after she tells the story, my daughter's Ava's like, gets it. And then she was like, okay, I'll open my calendar tomorrow, basically. But it's so much fun every morning. She comes down, she like doesn't even say hi, mom. She goes through her advent calendar and she's like, can we open it, dad? And it's like every day that joy of like, what's gonna be in it? What am I gonna receive today?
Right.
It's,
I love
it's,
it.
it's just amazing.
Do you guys do the elf on the shelf too? Is that a
No,
thing?
no, we're not. Like there's certain things where like, yes, no, but
Yeah.
I'm not really into like this behavioral correction through the holiday thing. You know what I mean? Like they're watching you, Abe. You better it like you outsource everyone outsources their parenting to the elves and to Santa. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we we aren't doing that. Like we're not doing that. We're both on the same page with that. And we really try not to even get into the like if you were a good girl this year or what like we're
Yeah.
just you
You'll
know
be on the naughty list or yeah,
yeah, that's
the nice list or
stressful.
the
I think
naughty
I
list.
was, like, really stressed. I was stressed as a kid, like, "Is Jesus gonna take me into heaven, and is Santa gonna get me
Yeah.
presents?" And I was like, "Dude, I took that around,"
That is really heavy.
you know? As a seven-year-old kid, like, that could be really
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that much. It's like, "Don't mess up because you won't get into heaven," and I'm sitting there, like, laying asleep awake
Yeah.
at night. He's like, "Does Jesus hate me? Did I fuck this all up?" You know? It's like
Because you, like, didn't pick up your toys. I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm definitely not."
Exactly. Yeah, my parents yelled at me today because I went and got an extra sweet or something, you
Yeah.
know? It's like, it's not that serious.
No. But it is really funny, like, we think about, when we think about kids and the magic of this time of year, like, it does get to be a time for joy and magic, I think, and it's, the rest of the year, it's like, I don't know, I feel like kids get sucked into the stress of adults. Like, I'm saying and, I'm not a parent, but I work with
Yeah,
so many parents, that
yeah,
it's like I just see it happen all the time where the parents are just living in the state of stress and the kids are sucked into it and some of that like childhood magic gets lost. And I
yeah,
think this year kind of or this time of year, the Christmas time and the holidays, it just forces that back a bit. And then like kids have school break and then there's just
yeah,
the parents typically have some holiday break during that time.
yeah. Well, it's we're in this constant celebration and like
Yeah.
life is meant to be celebrated, right?
Yeah.
And I think adults, what we do is we project like, oh, life is hard. And, we say, I'm not saying you and I, but like people say stuff. It's like life's tough and then you die. Like
Right.
that's like what people carry around. And then they like muster up enough energy to like snap themselves out of it for the joy of like the holiday season. But it is a fun time of year. It's like my daughter's birthday is a week before Halloween. And basically it's like, we do birthday, Halloween, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and it just all feels very magical. And there's so many like fun pieces to that. And I remember feeling that. And then you get into the heart of the year, and it's like, what do we all have to go back
Yeah.
to a state of less joy now because we're through it?
Yeah.
We got to another year and now we'll go treat each other differently. It's like people do treat each other and they're more compassionate this time of year. And I just love it because it infuses this like hope within people. Because, we haven't done an episode on this, but it's like if you're serving another person, you're not thinking about yourself so much. And this time of year, there's plenty of opportunities for people to do things for other people.
Yeah.
And so we kind of get filled up in service, and the world truly is a better place. And I
Yeah.
think if we can continue that essence of like find ways to serve each other instead of just complaining about each other, and after a political season, it still happens again, right? We're like in a state of joy and expression and expansion, and we're not
Yeah.
worried about those boxes that we put each other in.
Yeah.
We get out of that during this time of year, and I think that's through that aspect of service because we're doing so much for other people. um, and then at the beginning of the year, it's like, oh, I'm alone again. Oh, here it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Time to get serious again.
yeah.
What was your favorite, I don't know, favorite stories from childhood or favorite movies with Christmas
Oh,
or
for
the holidays?
Christmas. God, you know what? I mean, I love the Home Alone ones. Like I
Yeah,
love that like mischievous
totally.
piece to it. That was great. Um, I've explored some new ones with my daughter. Like, I really think the Muppets are hilarious. Like, I wasn't really a Muppet fan growing up, but we just watched like the Christmas Carol Muppet one, and then there's like another Christmas one, and I'm like, they are hilarious. Like, those characters are like crazy, and they're just interacting with humans, and you're like, wait a second. So I've been like reliving that. But I think my favorite as a kid was Christmas Story was my favorite. I
Oh,
love
Christmas Story was incredible.
yeah.
I also like that movie. I forget what it was called. It was like with the train. Like it
Polar
was like
Express?
yeah, the Polar Express. Yeah, that
Oh,
one.
so good.
That
Yeah.
was great, and I love the book too. I remember one of my favorite childhood memories was we'd be like I'd be sitting on the couch with my mom, and like there'd be the fire going, and she'd be reading these different stories, and it was just such a fun time of year.
I love the Christmas Carol though, like, and Scrooge and the
Yeah,
ghosts that come and, I just love the kind of the meaning behind that and, like, the transformation that can occur. So I think I always really that story, my dad loved that. We would always decorate the tree, with, like, the original, Christmas Carol movie. So I really just that story has always been a big one in my family and in my life. So, but all the stories are amazing, like
yeah.
during this time of year. It's just really, we do a lot more reading of books and watching of movies. And we're not big screen people, but like, I don't know, something about Christmas movies just like makes
Oh,
it feel
it's
good.
fun.
Yeah.
We just ordered some like we're getting like hot cocoa for the office for this time of year too, just to,
Nice.
like for people to because we have like tea and that type of thing for people to drink when they're at the office, but to have some hot cocoa if they want it.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is even that, like, you're like part of the indulgement is the realization of like it's gonna happen a little bit, and that's
Yeah,
okay, right? I think that's like also a pass that people need to do. You can't like, have 4% body fat all year round. Like even
yeah,
bodybuilders like aren't
yeah,
that way all the time. Like you have to have your seasons where you just like let go a little bit and are
yeah,
okay with it. This isn't a time of year to like start a diet or that sort of thing. That's
right,
why there's this response at the beginning of the year. But obviously you don't want to go over the top because you're, too much sugar, you're sick and you're just not well and the energy's not good and you can't do anything anyway.
yeah,
But the realization that like it's gonna happen, you're gonna be a little indulgent, you're gonna probably move a little less and eat a little bit more. And like that's okay. We used to do that to like actually sustain ourselves through the winter because we couldn't eat as much. So
yeah.
as long as we just do that year round now.
Well, I think it is. It's like having I don't know, the correct expectations for this time of year.
Hmm.
Because, it's
Yeah.
like, just having an awareness of like, "Oh, the days are getting longer, like, I'm gonna maybe feel more withdrawn, more introverted."
Hmm.
Like, there are gonna be these things. Watch out because it's like your system is more depleted, so you're more vulnerable to sugar and alcohol and sleep
Yeah.
deprivation, those things.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it is like, people do, like, tend to be a little indulgent, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just don't get so out of balance with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's psychologically damaging if you just try to like not do anything,
Yeah.
to like be like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, but I'm not going to have a piece of pie type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or uh,
Yeah, because I think I've tried to do that too, and it's just like, one of maybe we'll have him on sometime. Dr. Tommy John. One of the things he always said I loved is like, happy donuts better than a sad salad. And I'm
yeah,
like, those people. Like,
yeah,
those people that just they're not happy about anything that they're doing because it's always a um restriction. And that's like there's some certain times you have to give yourself a pass for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And to tune in with the wheel of the year with the cycles of nature and
Yeah.
just like we had Alex Cheho is an amazing astrologer. We did an interview with her, and if you haven't listened to that, I definitely recommend listening to it. It was a really cool conversation. But one of the like benefits of studying astrology is that you learn more about your natural strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
And because these things also are in flux, like the planets are in flux all the time. So how these things can show up and what to do about them. And the cycles of the year, this time of year, it's the same thing. It's
Mhm.
just knowing what's coming up, preparing your schedule and those things ahead of time, and Maybe it's like you don't want as much hardcore exercise, but it's like, but more nature walking, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But it's like you're blending your system, you're blending your energy structure, you're blending the way you're living with what the world is doing around you. And then
Mhm.
it's like you're not, it's not so abrasive. You're not losing energy trying to go like to swim against the river, if you will. Like
Yeah.
there's natural tides to like the natural tides with how the ocean works. And if you're trying to constantly like swim against the tide, it doesn't work so well. Save your energy in those moments. And then when
Yeah.
the tide is going out, that's when you swim and you can make so much progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you always have momentum somewhere in some
Yeah.
way. And it's great to harness that momentum. And sometimes that momentum is stillness, right? Realizing that like that's where you're winning right now is like by being quiet and going within. So um, I think it's awesome. I mean, I think this is a time of year that, like you said, to really hone in on the reflection, make some extra quiet time. And for me, that's morning. I
Yeah.
like to get up early. It's still dark out, and I do my best thinking and my best work and planning at that time of day.
Same. Yeah, I'm not a night owl, but I'll typically wake up at like 5:30. And yeah, I like to have my morning like being able to wake up slow time.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I just will kind of gradually putter into my day, and that seems to work for me, especially in the winter. Get warm, stay quiet, um, and really enjoy the darkness,
Yeah.
because it makes the spring so much better. Like people love to complain. I'm sure in the Northeast, no matter where you are, people love to complain about the winter, but we have such a greater amount of gratitude for the nice
Yeah.
days because we go through this phase, and I've kind of learned to love it from that perspective too. I just love the fact that like you get this contrast to really appreciate the nice days when they come, and when they start coming it's like there's new life, and we experience that in ourselves, that new life. So um find your rhythm in the winter, and stick to it and refine it each year, because you'll get that new life when we hit in the spring.
Yeah, and there's a natural like silence to this time of year too. I started doing a lot of hikes with the dog this time of year,
Yeah.
and like I really enjoy winter hike, like winter trail hikes now, because it's just like there's hardly anybody out there. It's so quiet, and when there's snow, there's this like insulating stillness, and
Love it.
everything. It's just like almost time is frozen. It's just such a cool feeling. So yeah, there's a lot of like really special magic and joy that can be found in these moments of stillness and the world just slowing down within and without.
Have you had snow yet?
No, we haven't had snow yet. We've had frost.
Okay.
So there's like the frost in the cars and like little bits of kind of snow. But
Yeah.
we're actually supposed to Thursday. I think we might be getting some snow on Thursday.
Cool. I love that. Like
Yeah.
new snow that hasn't been touched and you
Yeah,
go out in it. Oh, it's like the most silent, peaceful
it
sound.
is.
You
It
can
is.
hear the flakes hit. I love it. I can't
Yeah.
wait. It's gonna be
Well,
awesome.
it's so fun.
That's great. Well, there's a lot to look forward to with the winter. Hopefully, this is just can even serve this episode as like a reframe, just a way to look at it differently, right? Because there's
Yeah.
so much beauty in the winter. There's many opportunities for growth, and there's a lot of um, new routines that you can connect to that are going to really help support you as the year continues. So, if you have any additional questions, comment, let us know. We are excited to have 25 episodes under our belt. Hopefully, this one doesn't get censored. We did say a couple things early on that I was like, oh, I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. Um,
And yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. One thing I would ask the audience, if you're up for sharing, is one, what's your favorite like Christmas movie or book? And especially with Bill's daughter Ava, maybe we'll find some new ones that we
yeah.
aren't even aware of yet. And then if you have like a favorite Christmas drink, because I would love like a cool new tea or something like that to drink.
Oh, I love it. That sounds good. Yeah, please help us out through this winter. Something to get my voice back. So awesome. All right. Thanks for being here. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, rate and review, or whatever we call it. just do the thing at the bottom of the thing. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode.
Thank you all so much for joining us.